Brilliant. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, listen, I'm first of all, sorry everybody for keeping you waiting. We have just had a few technical difficulties. So apologies and thank you very much for waiting. So we're just getting Eileen on the line. We're getting her on a phone line. So I'm going to hope that she's going to be set up by the time I've done my domestics. So fingers crossed, everyone keep their fingers crossed because it's a really, really good session. So first of all, good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. So I'm Catherine Morrow, and I'm the Operations Director for the IAOP. I'm really thrilled to be hosting this evening's session. And judging by the number of you that are here and those that registered, I'm guessing I'm not the only one that's a big fan of the Medication Safety Minute. I have to say, I've really enjoyed scoping this webinar out with Eileen, who is of course co-founder of the initiative and presenter this evening. I've been hearing the stories about how it came about and really how much passion and enthusiasm and actually a great deal of fun that goes into the planning of it. Actually, as part of my preparation, I did go back and look at the flip book again, and I got totally immersed and lost a good deal of time because it's just so clever and engaging how the information is presented. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from Eileen this evening, and I hope that you are too. Okay, so let's just whiz through some domestics just very quickly because I know you're all very familiar. So if you could keep your microphones muted, that would be fantastic. Do keep your videos on if you'd like to, because we love to see everyone's faces, but if you're having connectivity issues, it always helps to turn your video off. Sound-wise, problems with sound, we find the best thing is to exit the webinar and come back in again. That often does the trick. Comments box, we love it when you post in the comments box. We will be keeping a close eye on that and raising any of the good questions with Eileen as we go through, certainly at the end. And just to let you know, we are recording the webinar. So the recording will be available after the event, and it'll be available on the website. So just be aware that anything that's posted in the comments box, for example, might be available to view on the recording. Okay. So in terms of the format, well, in terms of the running order, I should say, I'm going to be handing you over to Eileen once we get Eileen on the phone line, and she's going to run through her presentation. I know that Eileen would love it if you would post comments and questions as we go through. She said that she'd really like the opportunity to connect with you and to hear what you think. Thanks also for posting some questions in advance. And we really hope to touch on as many of those as possible during this evening. And whilst the presentation will last about 30 or 40 minutes, we have left some time so we can have some conversation at the end. And as always, we promise to be finished by 9 o'clock. So in terms of our presenter, so I don't know if Eileen can hear us yet, but I have to say I've known Eileen for a good many years, and many of you will know her too. Eileen Relihan, she's been in the post of Medication Safety Facilitator in St James's Hospital since 2004, I believe. And she's a wealth of qualifications. She has an MSc in Hospital Pharmacy, PhD in Pharmacy Practice, and a diploma in Leadership and Quality. And she's published widely, actually, on the topic of medication safety and has been a peer reviewer for a number of international journals. So I, myself, first met Eileen back when we were both appointed as peer support pharmacists for the IAOP, and that was back, I think, in 2014. And she's been of great continued support to the IAOP, and I'm thrilled to have her on the webinar this evening. So I'm hoping we have Eileen on the line. Eileen, can you hear us?
I'm keeping an eye out for her, but I'm not seeing her come in.
She's having
I can see a phone, Eileen. I can see a phone number dialing in. So she's trying to get in by phone. So you're on mute, Eileen. I can see her mobile phone coming up there. Yeah, I can see you, Eileen. She's
the wonders of technology.
I can actually see her phone number up there.
Okay, so presumably she's just connecting.
She's logging in. She's just dialing in the old-fashioned way.
In which case, what I might do is start sharing Eileen's slides, Audrey.
Yes.
Hello.
Yay!
Hello. Hello. Oh my God.
We have you! Hooray!
Oh my God, that was a nightmare. Okay.
You're live. You're going live. No pressure.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay, no bother. got the
Now,
slides? Yep.
Eileen, I can start sharing them if you'd like on your behalf.
That would be fantastic.
Bear with me,
Thanks,
and then
Audrey.
you just prompt me. So bear with me now.
Eileen, I've given you a glowing introduction.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I'm terribly sorry about this. But,
not at all. Look,
okay,
that's absolutely fine. So we're going to share your slide deck, and
I'm opening that right now.
You can chat over them and let us know when you'd like us to move the slides along. And if it's okay, I'll butt in every so often with some questions.
Please do. Please.
Yeah, brilliant.
That would be awesome. Thank you so much.
Don't tell me. I'm having technical difficulties now. No, I'm not. Share screen.
Thank you so much for your patience, guys. This will go down with the all-time nightmare. Okay.
No. Look, worse things happen at sea. Don't worry.
Now, can you guys see the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
I can see the PowerPoint. So I will prompt you when to go ahead, Audrey. Yep.
Perfect. Lovely.
Are we good to go?
You're good to go. Over to you.
Okay, folks, firstly, thank you so much for your patience, and I'm extremely sorry for our technical difficulties, which was totally my fault, but we'll explore that another time, and I'm so grateful to Catherine and to Audrey for their assistance this evening. So I'm just going to get right into it, and I'm here obviously to talk about the Medication Safety Minute, microlearning in medicine. I have chosen this slide, with this picture on the slide, I should say, which is Salvador Dali's Melting Clock, which seems like probably a fairly peculiar representation of time for my opening slide. But I chose it because it really, I suppose, it's meant to mean, I suppose the meaning of it is that time is not fixed or constant, but rather a very relative and complex thing. And I thought that was quite appropriate, really, for this afternoon's or this evening's presentation, because a minute can mean so many different things depending on the context. As you know, a minute can change your life, a minute can be fleeting and uneventful, and I suppose this afternoon or this evening is about explaining just how much learning or education or training can be transmitted or communicated in literally just 1 minute. So Audrey, if we could move to the next slide there, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much.
There you go.
Thanks, Audrey. So this is my team. There's Barry O'Connell on the right-hand side there. He's the Executive Medical Director in St. James's. And then on the left is Dr. Una Kennedy, a consultant in emergency medicine. Yours truly there in the middle. So how our team started was we were doing a diploma in quality and management in the Royal College of Physicians in Ireland, in Dublin. And we wanted to do something on the topic of medication safety. And I suppose the problem we were trying to address was the fact that we knew it's extremely difficult to pass on medication safety messages, particularly to our doctors, given the pressures they're under and multiple competing priorities, continual interruptions, and really under massive time pressure. And we knew, I suppose, from our informal conversations with the NCHDs that, you know, regardless of our best intentions in sending out medication safety bulletins and alerts, that a lot of them, you know, went unread because of overcrowded email inboxes and, as I say, the pressures that staff were under. So our challenge really was to try and get the learning across from the medication safety data, which we had accumulated over many, many years in the hospital, and which was really valuable learning within. So that's our team. Right down there in the right-hand corner is our little avatar. That's meant to be sort of a hybrid of myself and Una, hence the green scrubs and the hair in the ponytail. So that character pops up a lot in our medication minute, and she's a particularly helpful individual. So we'll be seeing more of her as the evening progresses. So I might move on to the next slide there, Audrey, please. So, as I said, our target audience for the Medication Safety Minute was prescribers. As I said, they're under tremendous pressure, as are all healthcare professionals in the health service these days. And we knew we had to do something different, something unusual to catch their attention. And we knew that we had very little time to play with. So, moving on to our next slide there, Audrey, if you don't mind. We decided to embrace the concept of microlearning. So at the time, we didn't even know what we were doing was microlearning, but what we wanted to do was to chop up, I suppose, medication safety intelligence, if you like, into short digestible chunks. And there's lots of evidence that by splitting learning up into easily digestible, manageable chunks, that there's a much better chance of your audience remembering it and being receptive to it. So there was quite a bit of data out there, or evidence out there, when we went looking for it, to support the idea of very, very short units of learning, as opposed to long form, lengthy presentations of information, which can totally overload your target audience. So that was our plan, to embrace this concept of microlearning. Although, as I say, at the time when we started out, we weren't even familiar with that particular lingo. We just thought, let's do something short and sharp, quick bursts of information targeted at our doctors. So next slide, please. So our mission was, and we chose to accept it, was to deliver medication safety learning in 60 seconds or less. I think we've just flicked out of the presentation there for a second. Okay, just waiting for a slide to come back. There we are. That's fantastic. No, not at all. And so that was our mission, and it seemed kind of incredible or crazy at the time. And I suppose it really started out as something very, how would I say, a very humble sort of beginning, in that we said, we'll try and develop a 2-slide package, a question and an answer, something that we can send out easily, maybe on a weekly basis, and we'll see how we get on from there. So that's how we started, and we then, I suppose, began to develop all of the features and the branding, I suppose, around that, which are central to microlearning. One of which is that the audience can access the learning at a time and a place of their choosing when they're most receptive to it. So central to microlearning is the use of mobile devices. So your learner can access the information both within and outside the organization at a time of their choosing, when it suits them, essentially. We had this vision, I suppose, of doctors, maybe waiting for a bus, standing in line at the coffee queue, the coffee shop, and opening their phone and just clicking on the latest medication safety update, something quick and easy. Let's move to the next slide there, Audrey, please. Right, so this is how we developed our medication safety minute with the following features. And so it was very important, we felt, that we'd have a brand that was recognizable. So we developed our little logo up there in the top left-hand corner, Medication Safety Minute. Believe it or not, the inspiration for this was Countdown, the program Countdown, which I'd never even heard of. But Barry and Una were big fans, so they kind of like this retro look. So we wanted to just highlight, it was literally one minute that's highlighted in green out of the 60. And then our tagline, prescribe safely, every patient, every time, that really was inspired by one of the presenters or lecturers at the course we were doing in the RCPI, and I suppose his view, he was not a pharmacist, he was a consultant by background. His view was that you want absolute consistency and reliability. So you want things to be safe as possible, not just 99% of the time, but every patient and every time. So that's how we came up with that tagline, prescribe safely, every patient, every time. And I suppose at the time we developed it, it was a little bit more relevant than it is now, because as you can see, it's the handwriting, and since that time of its introduction, we've moved now to electronic prescribing, so we don't have handwritten prescriptions anymore, except in our outpatients department. Another really important feature of the Medication Safety Minute was graphics. So you can see our little ghostie coming across here, and we have lots of other characters like that show up. And I think our theory really here was to have sort of a light-hearted approach, whilst not, in any way being disrespectful of the topic or dumbing it down or anything like that. We wanted, I suppose, to give people a little bit of light relief in a way, and have a non-threatening approach to the medication safety messages, because as we know, medicine and pharmacy and anything in so the healthcare realm is very high stress now more than ever, and we wanted people just to have a little bit of time and space, a little humorous moment, maybe while at the same time taking in a valuable learning point about medications. We went for the question and answer type format because I suppose this was really inspired by looking at social media And you often come across these articles that are rather annoyingly entitled things like, a 1,000 ways to improve your life right now, or 101 ways to find happiness in your life, or these very, very annoying titles like that. In spite of yourself, you find yourself clicking on them to see what it's all about. We felt that especially with doctors being very competitive and academic, they would find it difficult to resist a question, and that you'd be compelled really to click to the answer. So it's kind of a clickbait type of formula, I suppose, a little bit manipulative, but it seemed to work. So moving on to the next slide then, Audrey, if you could, please. Thank you very much. So this, if you like, is the answer to that particular question. And this is just a sample medication to show you the features. So other micro-learning features that we tried to incorporate was a single learning objective. I mean, there's actually quite a lot in this particular medication, and some of them are a lot more sparse. But the temptation is, particularly I think as a pharmacist, is to cram in as much information as possible, as much detail as possible, and you have to try and balance, I suppose, the clarity of the data. Sorry, I've gone ahead there. The clarity of the data and the clarity of the message, whilst at the same time, not overloading your audience. So that is really difficult, and distilling a message down into very, I suppose, a very small amount of real estate is a very, very challenging thing. But that was the challenge, and that's what we chose to do. And I suppose we also felt we had a fair amount of credibility with these messages because they're all based on local risks. So either incidents or issues that were reported through our voluntary reporting system in hospitals, or concerns maybe that were highlighted by staff, maybe informally to one or either of us, or that we were aware of through our work. So, we really were, I suppose, taking advantage of that local body of data, and also because of the fact these messages were coming out on a weekly basis, we had that flexibility as well of being able to respond very rapidly to an evolving safety situation in the hospital. So if something came to light that was of concern, literally within days we could get a message out on it. So that turnaround time and that flexibility, or fluidity, was really useful, and still is very, very useful to us as a model. Okay, so move to the next slide.
Eileen,
Catherine, I don't know if you have any questions.
Yeah,
yes, I thought you might have some questions.
I was going to, I suppose it's a reflection as much as anything else. And that is, it seems to me that you put as much energy and focus on how you engage as to the actual topic itself, which is actually, I think, a really interesting idea, isn't it? That you are conscious that in order for your message to be absorbed, it needs to be engaging, and it needs to be, they need to be receptive to it. So I think it's a really innovative concept. And I'm curious, do you have any expertise around that? Do you have anybody working with you from, I don't know, from a marketing perspective or an advertising perspective, or is this all coming from the brilliance of the trio that is the Medication Safety Minute team?
So we've no outside help in that regard at all, but it is something, it's a concept that I'm very interested in. I'm almost very interested in adverts that catch my attention, or, well, even the open line of a book. I mean, if you don't hook the reader or the audience from the beginning, you're going to have lost them. So it's really important, I think, to grab people's attention really quickly, and pull them in. And I think attention to detail is I suppose a strong point from the pharmacy side, is really important, I think, with this sort of thing as well, because just even having, I suppose, material kind of look good visually or appealing visually, it gives more credibility, and people are more likely to, I suppose, trust it, believe in it, go back to it, all of that kind of thing. So I suppose, to answer your question, no, we didn't have any outside advice or anything like that, but it's kind of, I think, just observing what works well elsewhere and then trying to replicate that. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. So might need to click there again, Audrey, for my little characters to come rushing in.
I know, I'm clicking away. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe
clicking away.
Try again.
Try again. Okay, so they're not behaving themselves.
Zoom is not our friend tonight.
Tell you, the gods are not with us tonight.
There's our
here we go.
And
And you may have to click again.
There we go.
Oh, here we come. Okay. Okay. So here are some of our little friends, which people might recognize if they're fans of the Medication Minute. And there we go, and there's our rabbits. Okay, so yeah, so these little characters here, and I suppose there's a kind of a style that the Medication Minute has, and I'd imagine sometimes people are looking at this and they're saying, well, you know, what are they thinking of? But it's slightly, or maybe very childlike, hopefully not childish, but childlike, and I guess myself and my two colleagues are kind of fans of this, and I think it makes hopefully people smile, and sometimes there's a very, very bad pun tied up with the Medication Minute or play on words or something like that. But it's a certain style, and we keep it from Medication Minute to Medication Minute. We use the same colorways in our logos and all of that kind of thing. So certain style, certain type of font, all of these things. It's about visual language, which I suppose really is just a fancy way of saying we're using imagery to manipulate people in the best way possible, to help them to remember the information, to grab their attention, you know, and all of these things. I think our little character down there, the zebra, and some people would be familiar maybe with one of the Medication Minutes that has our zebra friend on it, and he's missing half his stripes, and you know, we're just using that to get across the message that something is missing, something's just not right. And that particular Medication Minute, I think, was in relation to doctors prescribing nebulized medication in the hospital, and at the time we were using handwritten prescriptions. Very frequently the prescriptions were incomplete. They didn't have the strength of the nebules on the prescription. So we were just using it to get across the fact that these prescriptions were being sort of left bare and incomplete. So, you know, a serious message, but a light delivery, I suppose, is what we're aiming for. Always trying to be and aiming to be respectful of the topic. And as I say, not ever dumbing it down. I mean, these are intended for prescribers, although they're very much used by pharmacists and very much used by nursing staff as well. And I suppose from time to time people have said, why don't you broaden your audience and have, you know, I suppose Medication Minutes more focused on administration for nurses, or, you know, that sort of thing. But I suppose, you know, one, I suppose, is resources. We have to, you know, we've only, I suppose, limited resources. Second thing is it's just, you know, I think we would dilute maybe the impact of the Medication Minute by trying to make it all things to all people. So just moving on to the next slide there, Audrey, when you get a chance. Thank you. Okay, so this is about communicating the Medication Minute. So I suppose in short, we literally use every possible avenue open to us. We are pretty much shameless that way. So kind of just swinging around the circle there, I'm sure people in hospitals, if there are people on the line or tuning in tonight from hospitals, to be familiar with the concept of grand rounds, which is a forum really held on a weekly basis for senior clinicians in the hospital, usually consultants and their teams, and they present usually case studies that they have come across in practice. So we use, or have hijacked really, the grand rounds, although of course with COVID at the moment it's suspended in its face-to-face format. But what we do is have the Medication Minute rotating on the screen as in question answer on a rotational basis, whilst waiting for the presentations to begin on the Friday morning at 8 o'clock. So that's one forum we use. Obviously email, we have it also on our intranet. So we have an intranet homepage and a banner that runs constantly across the top with about 5 or 6 messages every week. So we have a slot permanently booked on that for the Medication Minute of that particular week. And we also have the Medication Minutes accessible through our intranet, public intranet page now as well. Then we have a sort of, I suppose, a version of WhatsApp. It's called Silo, that we use in the hospital. It's a private messaging service through phones, and it is broadcast through that every week as well. The messages are very much used in prescriber teaching at all different sorts of levels. So they're used at kind of at undergrad and postgrad level. So the School of Pharmacy, I believe, circulates them or highlights them to their students. and also the RCPI for GP teaching. And so on. We have a digital flipbook as well, just in case people are not aware of that, and that's the link there to it. You can see in the right-hand side, that's a link that can be circulated or used in any way people wish. It's always going to be the most current version of the flipbook you'll get when you click on it. So what the flipbook involves really is a collection of medication safety minutes, and it's constantly growing over time. So I think we have about 90 in there now. So every 3 or 4 months or so, I add another 15, and I update the current medication minutes. So it's an ever-evolving kind of compilation, I suppose you might call it, of the medication safety minutes. We also have videos. So most of our medication minutes are just in the PowerPoint format. So quick, cheap, and easy. But we do have a few in video format as well. And for people that are interested, you can produce these free of charge. And that's what I did initially using Adobe Spark Video. It's free. Now it has its limitations, but you can produce something fairly nice at the same time. So again, if people want to check it out, or maybe many people have seen them, I don't know. We did a series of videos last year on the risks with sodium valproate in pregnancy. And then also more recently, then we have availed of software called Doodly. Now, Doodly is commercial software, so you have to buy a subscription to it, an annual subscription. And we got a little bit of funding through our hospital foundation. We applied for a grant and we got a little bit of funding. So the difference with Doodly then is, compared to Adobe Spark Video, is that Doodly is whiteboard software. So it's that kind of software where you have a hand drawing little characters or handwriting information or text. So it's a different type of look. And we have produced 3 of those so far this year, I think, and we should hopefully produce another few before our subscription expires on that, about May next year, I think. And then we have an annual quiz. Now the annual quiz is really good fun, and probably is one of the best things we have done, I think we've done in the hospital in terms of for improving medication safety culture. And that was kind of an unexpected spin-off, but it's really, I suppose, a nice way to engage our doctors. And I think for maybe 3 years, this is probably our 4th year now, we do the grand round and we present 20 of the medication minutes, and then people self-score their answers, and we mark them out of 20, and then we have prizes for the top 3 or 4 scores. So it's really surprising just how competitive people get with this, and it is just very, very good fun. And so we tend to have a half-an-hour quiz, and then we follow up then with the intern Christmas choir, and we have sort of a very lively rendition of Christmas carols. So it's a really feel-good session, and I just think that in itself makes a huge difference to how people feel about safety in the organisation, and engaging with the reporting system and so forth. Okay, well, and I didn't mention Twitter, obviously. Twitter is probably one of the best ways of communicating the message, I suppose, because it's so easy at both national and international levels. So we've a nice Twitter following at this stage, and I think the other nice thing about Twitter is that you get that kind of engagement from people in other countries. So I would have had people contact me from, all around the world, really, with various comments and suggestions, and very encouraging types of responses, really, and that helps make all the work worthwhile as well. It's a really positive thing.
Eileen, can I come in for a second, Eileen? Is that okay?
Of course, please.
Yeah. We just have a couple of questions in the chat box, and a few questions that I think would really fit in here. Actually, I think you've answered one of the questions really well, which is how can I communicate the medication safety minute in my own team? And I think you've given it loads of really good ideas as to how you might do that, even if it's running in the background, or if you're doing a quiz or whatever else. I'm struck by the adaptability of the message, the fact that you can use it in a very, very, I suppose, conventional and conservative format like grand rounds, and you can also tweet the same message. I think that's incredible, the flexibility. Yeah. But one of the questions that we've had, which is a good question, which is, have you had any, I suppose, constructive, perhaps negative feedback on any of the minutes that you've produced, and how have you adapted to that? And I guess this is coming down to perhaps the lightheartedness and the you know the way that you're conveying it. Have you had any feedback back that you've adapted to?
Thanks for that, Catherine. I'm getting a lot of noise feedback, actually. Oh, I think it's stopped now. There was just a bit of interference there on the line. I think it's improved there now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Catherine, to answer your question there, negative feedback, thankfully, very, very little negative feedback. I think it's important to say, like, that with putting anything out on social media, there is a risk, and that is something that I was very wary about in the early days of this. And I suppose that's where very much I've gotten a lot of reassurance from and support from my two medical colleagues in that regard. And I think, you know, sorry, Catherine, I'm getting a lot of noise in the background. Is that just me, or?
No, if everyone could mute,
is anybody unmuted?
If everybody could mute their microphones, that'd be great. Thank you. It's like a TV.
Yeah, it's a TV.
Yeah.
I just carry on there. But I thought I was just beginning. Was I hearing noise in my head, or
not at all?
Okay, perfect. I'll carry on there. But yeah, so I suppose it's important to say, as I was saying, there is a risk with going out there and putting yourself out there. I suppose my query to my colleagues was, you know, what happens if we make a mistake, you know, and that is a real worry of mine, especially I think pharmacists worry about that a lot, because our whole nature of our role in our job is to detect errors and stop errors, and obviously I'm in the business of medication safety. And you know, that has happened. I think we've had two mistakes on two of the medication minutes that have gone out. It's probably been 300 at this stage. So that, thankfully, that's not a high level. All you can do, I think, in that instance is to ask yourself, you know, on balance, am I doing more good than harm, or vice versa? And I would like to think we are doing substantially more good, or have more positive effect than negative. But no matter, you know, if once you engage in this kind of thing, something will probably go wrong at some point, and all you can do then is correct it as quickly as possible and be as clear as possible and open and transparent about an error or a mistake. I suppose we would also say that the information is very much developed for our own hospital in a particular type of environment. It's an acute teaching hospital in Dublin, in Ireland. It's, you know, there could be different guidance down the road in a different hospital. It certainly may not suit, you know, environments in other countries. So, you know, we do have that caveat, we do have that disclaimer, I suppose, and we would be asking people to always check the information and its applicability for their own local environment. Aside from that, from a negative point of view, thankfully very little. I did have one person who was very annoyed with one of my doodly videos because she felt that the messages was moving too slow. The writing was appearing too slowly. Sorry, it was appearing too slowly. Yes, I should say on the screen. Now, funnily enough, I actually thought it was too fast, if anything. But her view, this was one of the consultants in the hospital, she felt that in this I suppose era of you know, people being so technologically savvy and so, you know, aware of you know, software and IT and all the rest of it, that, you know, it was very protracted and moving too slowly, and that I should speed it up. And the actual visualization of the hand itself, also she felt was annoying. So actually I removed that in subsequent doodly video I did then, and you can just see the writing but no hand. But you know, I suppose you cannot please absolutely everybody, but you try to appeal to the majority. I think rather than negative comments on Twitter, you know, I often will get hospitals maybe saying, just let you know, in our hospital we do X. Well, not saying that what we're doing in St James's is wrong. It's just that they do something different, and we might end up in a conversation regarding that. And that's really interesting. That's actually
very positive.
So a lot of UK. Yeah. It is, yeah. A lot of UK colleagues, particularly, would contact me. So I better keep moving here. I'm just conscious of time. Maybe the next slide there, Audrey. So this is a very quick slide. This is just to show a visualization of our Twitter site. This is our little avatar at the top there, being very socially distant, and yeah, so this is, again, I suppose, a bit of our branding is this little person pops up from time to time in the medication minutes, usually not having a clue what the answer is to the question. So she's not the smartest little character, but that's okay. Yeah, it's just again part of, I suppose, the fun or the branding of this. As you can see there, we have our link to the flip book there embedded as well for people who want to follow that. Okay, so next slide, please.
Good.
Yeah, so I just wanted to maybe a quick word on the challenges of different media, and by that I'm just mean PowerPoint versus video. And you know, it's funny, sometimes the low-tech option can be more valuable than anything, but I think it's nice to mix it up as well and keep people's interest going, you know, so and keep my own interest going as well. I think video offers something different. You know, you have the animation, you've got music, kind of, you know, you have the movement, that, you know, there's a bit of, what would you say, suspense, and it motivates people to keep watching. What I would say is it's incredibly time consuming, at least, although you do get, or one does get faster, it is so hard to get the timing right in terms of the amount of information you can put on screen, which allows people sufficient time to read it, you know, whilst at the same time moving things along and getting to your conclusion. Given that you've only 60 seconds, although I would have extended a couple of the videos to maybe 75 seconds, it's really difficult. You have the cost implications as well if you're buying, obviously, you know, commercial software. In each package, you know, when you look at it, because I looked at a lot of different ones before I settled on Doodly, they all have their limitations, not least of which is learning how to use them. You know, you have to learn how to use them proficiently before you can actually start producing anything. And then, of course, there's the cost. And at the end of the day, you kind of have to think, you know, what impact is this having over our very simple, you know, two-slide PowerPoint? You know, and you get, I suppose, diminishing returns over time. You're putting more and more time in, but are you actually getting more and more impact out of it? So there's no simple answer here. You know, it's just a question of weighing it up. The nice thing about the PowerPoint slides is that people can take it at their own pace. But probably the disadvantage is that people can kind of see the answer, you know, they can kind of sort of cheat and see ahead and see the answer, whereas the video, they have to wait for it. There's a little bit of suspense and drama. But, you know, it's sort of 6 of one and half a dozen of another, different challenges with each, I think. Okay, so just going to the next slide then.
Oh.
So I just have 3 examples of medication minutes here, just to kind of illustrate, I suppose, the range and breadth of what we do. This one is about medication calculations, and I was worried about doing this when I initially started to put it together, and I didn't want to feel that, I guess, you know, I didn't want to patronize prescribers, or you know, suggest that they may have difficulty with calculations like this. But like any of these, particularly where there's ratios or your percentages involved, they are tricky, and they're tricky for all professions. And, you know, having read around it, like I had come across a paper, a published paper, which had done a study where they had presented prescribers with, I think it was 20 different calculations, and you know, the results were surprisingly poor. Like, people really struggled. So although the study was based in the States, I figured it's probably not likely to be terribly different here. And actually, when we put this out, a lot of people came back and said, gosh, I really, you know, I found that a lot trickier than I'd like to admit. You know, it actually was not easy. So I picked these 2 particular medications because they are ones that all doctors need to know about, because they would be used in resuscitation. Well, adrenaline would. And lidocaine, very often used in you know, minor injuries and in the ED. So a common medication in the hospital, and you know, you've got your weight per volume there as well. Not simple. Just going to the next slide there, please. Yeah, and then just a little bit of humour. I couldn't resist at the bottom there with our normal distribution and then the paranormal distribution. So that was our little ghosty featuring again there at the end. So moving then to our next example. So the inspiration for this really was choose your own adventure stories, which I was a fan of when I was a kid. And I just love the idea that, you know, you could have a parallel life or a different life depending on a critical decision you make. That was the idea behind this. And it's not far removed from reality at all, in a way. we can all appreciate the fact that things turn on a pinhead in medication and medicine. And it can be something as simple as, does somebody check the label before they administer medication? That could be the difference between literally life and death. The inspiration for this particular story, or this particular medication minute, thankfully this incident didn't ever actually happen, but we had near misses, and it was actually an ED registrar that said to me on the phone one day, just want to have you there on the phone now. I talked to her about something else, a different incident. She said, a number of times we've drawn up an ectine instead of an exate. My heart nearly stopped. An ectine obviously being succinylcholine, a neuromuscular blocker, and then an exate being obviously the antidote for benzodiazepines. So I just, I was aware of it, obviously, as we would be, as an issue. The fact that this does happen in hospitals, there's been, many years recorded internationally where patients inadvertently have gotten neuromuscular blockers and have required emergency intubation as a result, and it can be a catastrophic error. So anyway, that really was, I suppose, the drive we needed to get this sorted in the hospital, sorted in the sense that we pulled back. We had succinylcholine on every ward in the hospital at the time, and it had been since I've been in St. James, just 22 years now. But it was no longer needed. Times had changed in that when we have an arrest now, the crash team brings the medications they need with them. They don't need the succinylcholine to be on in the ward stock. So we withdrew succinylcholine from all of the wards, so there would be no risk of a misselection. And then where it had to be stocked in critical care areas, all our neuromuscular blockers are segregated in a special bin that's labelled with paralysing agents. So it's very clear to somebody, because they have to go to the effort of extracting from this particular container, it makes them aware of what they're actually drawing up or drawing out. But the key point with this particular medication minute was the value, the importance, and stressing the need to doctors for a second person check on medication, because whilst nurses are very aware of this, sometimes prescribers are not. They have a different culture. They often proceed with administration without getting a second person check. And it is just, even though it is, I suppose, policy in the hospital, it's something that it kind of has to be reiterated to that group, because they're rarely involved in administration. But when they are, it can be very high risk meds, like this particular case here. So just moving to the next slide, please. And the next one, please. Perfect, thank you. And this is just, again, a different character of this medication incident. This is just focused on adverse drug reaction. Quinolones have an Achilles heel. Here's the bad pun. What is it? And of course, as we know, it's tendonitis. We can move to the next slide there, please. And you might say, well, why did you pick this particular adverse effect to highlight them? There are so many that could be focused on. And I think at the time, first of all, this was quite topical. It's a couple of years ago. At the time, we had very widespread use of quinolones in our hospital. They were very embedded in our antimicrobial guidelines. Less so now, because I suppose so many risks have been highlighted with quinolones. So we had widespread use of them. And what struck me about this particular adverse effect is that it's something you can alert patients to, which they can watch for. And if they are aware of it and it's acted on quickly enough, then there's I suppose a role for damage limitation. A lot of adverse effects you can't really do anything about, or the patient can't be, they can't, I suppose, act to inform their prescribers about it in a way that will actually limit the damage. But that was possible, or is possible, with this particular adverse effect, and it's a very serious and potentially irreversible adverse effect. So I felt it was something also maybe that prescribers were not maybe as aware. At the time, I felt they were not as aware maybe as they needed to be in the hospital. So that was the rationale for that. And then finally, moving to our last slide there, if we could. So the next slide, yeah.
Next one after this.
Next one, please, yeah.
That was your last one there, Eileen. The drop of water, the impact.
Oh no, no, I didn't get to see that one there, or talk about it. If I go back to that one. Yeah,
I'm on that now.
Seems to have lost connection there for a second.
Might be a bit of a delay on your side. It's your slide with the impact
maybe.
and the drop of water.
So it's just saying connect. Yeah, that's the one I wanted to just comment on. At the moment, it's saying connecting here on my iPad. I'm not sure what's going on.
We can all see it from our side.
Oh, you can see it. I
Yeah,
can't
I can
see
see
it, but I can comment on it. Even though I can't see it. So, okay. I tell you, I'm faced with every challenge tonight. I don't know, the gremlins are out, I think. They really are. So anyway, this final slide, even though I can't see it, I know what's in it. And I suppose the idea here of the drop of water and the ripple effect was literally just that very concept that this started as something very, very small. And then I guess it kind of grew some legs, and we started sharing it. And so it's been very organic, not intentional, but it's very heartening. So we've a large number of hospitals around Ireland, I suppose, that are using the medication Minute in one way or another now, either sharing it directly or maybe adopting or adapting the model. Oh, I'm back online. I can see it here now. That's great. So that's really lovely to see, because a lot of work goes into them, and it's great to see other people getting value out of them. And I suppose from the start, that was a real strong feeling with Barry and Una, that whatever we did, we would share it as far and wide as we could. And the flipbook, we've had 13,500 flipbook reads apparently, which is really just fantastic to see. And it's been featured also on this free online access site, the Global Health Network. So that's just, I suppose, a site for collating resources that, particularly for countries that, are I suppose struggling to have access to educational resources. So it collates all of the free information resources on medication topics, and in this case pharmacovigilance topics, and it makes them available to people. So that's really nice to have that highlighted there. So yeah, we've put out I think it says 168 minutes. Actually, that figure's out of date now. I think it's well in excess of that now. A lot of the medication minutes, I should say, we do repeat. So I think we've over 100 unique ones, and then we do repeat them maybe on every second one, every third one maybe is a rerun, as we call it, and sometimes an updated rerun. And that's again kind of a resource issue, so just to keep it at a sustainable level. So that's really it, the end of my presentation. But I'd love to take any questions or comments if anybody
we certainly have some questions.
Great.
For you, Eileen. And I suppose one of the questions that was asked actually before the webinar was around how can you the transferability of topics. And I suppose even just watching your presentation, something like the scary story, I mean, that's basically a template for any near miss, isn't it? So do you find that you do that a lot?
Yes.
Use your concepts and insert different issues into them?
Well, that particular concept I've only used kind of once, I suppose. But you certainly could use it again. And I mean, I think, that sort of idea, I think anybody could relate to, and be it community pharmacy or hospital pharmacy across the board, we all can understand or appreciate that split second decision type of thing, where you take that extra moment, to counsel a patient or to check something a second time or what have you. Yeah, I mean, that particular idea, I say I haven't reused, but I'm sure there are probably many other types of templates I have. I'm trying to think now, yeah, it's like one of the things I find myself increasingly doing is looking at guidelines in the hospital that are quite complex, and they're maybe long written protocols, and simplifying them into sort of algorithms, like flowchart type algorithms. I really like that sort of idea. I was working on one today, in fact. What was I working on? I was looking at hyperglycemia in patients with COVID, either diabetic patients or non-diabetic patients. Hyperglycemia arising out of steroid use, that is. We had a very good guideline, and I was just looking at it and trying to put it into an algorithm that could be understood as quickly as possible by just a glance. And then what I was going to do then with that was take, if you have an algorithm and you have a flow chart and you have arrows and boxes, was leave one of the boxes blank. And I suppose the question would be then, what fits in the box? Like what can you fill in the blank if you like? I like that idea of filling in blanks, or or matching things, pairing them. I suppose a couple of medication minutes I did were on looking at interactions medication interactions, and trying to almost demystify that, because I just remember when I was in college, it seemed absolutely an impenetrable subject. You just couldn't get your head around it. You know, and I suppose what I was trying to do with, and I did a couple of medication ones on that, was try to break it down so that there was a way you could remember the big hitters, the major perpetrators, kind of like, you know, the heavy hitters in terms of medication interactions. And you can actually do that, but a lot of what I'm trying to do is trying to simplify and demystify in as far as that is possible. And it's obviously it's incredibly complex world of medications out there, but I think it's the kind of thing I would have appreciated maybe when I was certainly in the earlier days of when I was an undergrad and early days of pharmacy.
Absolutely, and I'm sure many students will be, you know, watching with interest. And I was really, when we were chatting about this before, I remember asking you, you know, about the, you know, I suppose the pedagogy or the educational background to this, and you were saying you were very much working on instinct, and I think that's a really good message, isn't it? Is that your instinct and keeping things really simple works exceptionally well.
Yes. Yeah, I think, and it. Sorry. Go on. Yeah. No, I was just going to say absolutely instinct, and what I think I said to you is that I'm satisfying what I want myself. I'm pleasing myself first, and I'm producing what I would like, or what I would want, or so there's a real kind of how would you say, a personal aspect to it. It's very much it's very much like trying to satisfy what I would have looked for or wanted, and luckily that other people seem to like and want that as well. So that's exactly. Sorry, I cut across you there, Catherine.
Not at all. I had a question which has come in, which I think is a good question, and that's around I suppose the quality assurance. And the question is very simply, practically, what do you do before you publish a minute? What's your rigor?
Sure. So what I do is, depending on the area it's in, be it endocrinology, psychiatry, whatever, I seek out, and very often will have contacts, or, you know, definitely will have contacts of consultants in those particular areas, and I ask them to basically review it. It only takes them you know, a couple of minutes, because obviously it's their area of expertise, and very often they will be based on stuff work we've already just been working on, be it developing a new guideline, for example, you know, or protocol. So it's secondary to that, I feel like. So the information has already been reviewed and approved and good to go, if you know what I mean. So that's the main thing I do. I liaise with the experts in the particular area, and then I suppose from just a readability kind of and also a clinical accuracy check as well, I would send them to a couple of my colleagues in pharmacy for their review. And again, it's quite a quick thing. They would be looking at readability, easy, you know, under comprehension, that type of thing, and just seeing if they get it as quickly as you know, you want somebody to get it, like, in other words, that they're not trying to puzzle it out. What am I actually trying to say here? It needs to be instantly understandable. So so that's really the process. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm looking at these messages. To be honest with you, I'm scrolling through dozens and dozens of people saying how much they love the resource. Literally, everybody's saying how much they love it. People loving the concept, would love community examples, and of course, I suppose that's something that can be done. And you've given some people the tools now to be able to go and do that themselves. Lots of people asking, how can we see the flipbook?
Oh yeah, the link is there in the presentation. So you just literally copy the link into your browser. It's that simple. Literally just click on it. It's on the Twitter site as well. It's on every email I send out. Actually, I have it in my signature.
I noticed that. Yes.
So you can't escape it, really.
It's everywhere.
You know, yes, it's everywhere. Absolutely.
Brilliant.
I'll be sharing the presentation with everyone as usual, so it'll be in that as well. So
thanks so much, Audrey, and thank you so much, Audrey and Catherine, for your patience and tolerance this afternoon or this evening. I so appreciate it.
Not at all.
I'm terribly sorry for all the glitches.
No, lots of people are saying that they love it when it pops into the Twitter, love it when it pops into their inbox. So look, certainly lots of love for the lots of love for the minute. If anybody has any last minute questions for Eileen, now is your chance if you have anything practical. But I know, Eileen, you're probably always happy to hear from people, are you? I know you love this topic.
Absolutely.
I'm for hours.
I could have talked for hours, and it'd be very hard to get me off the phone if you ever do call me or email me. So I'm more than happy if anybody wants to email me or call me at any time. I genuinely mean that. Love to chat to you, and about, you know, people might have more practical questions about how to do something similar or what have you. Also, just to say, if ever anybody wants to get the email of the Medication Minute on a weekly basis, I have a distribution list, and that goes out to a lot of the hospitals. If you want to email me, if you did want to be added to that, just let me know. You know, because I know not everybody likes social media, not everybody likes Twitter, so it's not for them. But probably the quickest way to pick up some medication minutes is the flip book, but you won't get the weekly update one. It'll be updated more at like quarterly intervals. You know, but you know, as I say, like we have, I think, 90 medication minutes on that now, so it is growing over time. So
brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm just looking. We are at 9 o'clock, so we do always promise to get everybody get finished up at 9. So just before everybody does leave, I do want to quickly plug our very last session, webinar session, which is in 2 weeks' time, and we've got Mary Collins back, Dr. Mary Collins. You might remember. I think she presented our very first webinar. She's a fantastic presenter. She's talking about leveraging the strengths of the multi-generational workplace. I've spoken to Mary about it already. It's going to be a really, really good session. So if you can, December the 9th, Wednesday, December the 9th, we'd love to see you. So I'm going to thank Eileen. And poor Eileen has had an absolute nightmare getting on. And I'm so glad that she persevered and we were able to get her on the phone. And it hasn't, I'm sure, hopefully hasn't affected anybody's sort of enjoyment of the evening. I've certainly loved hearing all about it. And like I said, all I can tell you, Eileen, is that there's lots of love in the chat box, so we'll make sure you get to see that.
Oh, thank you so much, Catherine. It's been an absolute pleasure this evening. And again, apologies, folks, for the glitches. I just think the gremlins got into the computers or something. I don't know. But they didn't stop us. And I guess that there's less than that as well. Perseverance. Keep at it. Keep going.
Perseverance.
And you will prevail. You will win, you know.
You will prevail.
I'm extremely thankful. Yes. Very thankful to the IOP. It was an absolute honour to present this evening. And thank you so much to everybody for listening and sticking with us.
Absolutely. And maybe we'll have a part 2 one day, because I think lots of people would love more practical tips on how to get started. So let's keep that in mind.
I would love to. I would love to do that.
Well, fantastic. Well, listen, I'm going to say thank you, Eileen. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We really hope you enjoyed this session, and we really hope to see you for our very last session in December. So good night and goodbye from myself and Audrey and Eileen.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you. Bye.